everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we please remain standing for the invocation, please? Dear God, thank you for bringing us all here tonight. We ask that you watch over our city and watch over all the Newmanites. In this we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Caton?
Present.
Councilmember Kelly?
Present.
Councilmember Trinqua?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martino?
Present.
Mayor Fantasini?
Declaration of conflict of interest. Are there any? There being none. Ceremonial matters. Proclamation, Portuguese Immigration Week.
Here, here.
When's the Irish? Okay. We're very fortunate in this community that we have a lot of Portuguese immigrants, and I'm very proud to say that my son-in-law is Portuguese, so that makes my grandchildren half Portuguese. But anyway, the Portuguese have given a lot to the community, as any of you would know if you've lived in this area very long. So we just thank goodness that they're part of our community and continue to contribute so much as they do. Next item, legislation update by Steve Qualls of the League of California Cities.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Stephen Qualls, and I'm your new Central Valley Public Affairs Manager for the League of California Cities. Before I start tonight, I'd like to give you a quick introduce myself, say a little bit about myself, just tell you about myself. Originally, before I accepted this position, I was the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Houston. I also sat on the policy board for the Stanislaus Council of Governments and the Economic Development Action Committee. I was Vice President of the Central Valley Division and also sat on the Housing Community Economic Development Committee for the League of California Cities. I'm here to give you a brief legislative update. As you all know, the governor proclaimed a fiscal emergency. And some of the actions that him and the legislature have decided to take, I'd like to tell you about tonight. First of all, the governor sold the remaining $3.3 billion in economic recovery bonds. Now what that means is it's going to push back the sunset of the triple flip until 2012 or beyond. The legislature also decided to suspend the highway users tax for 5 months. Now this is not Prop 42 funds. This is a separate gas tax that they collect. They're going to push it back till September. Usually we get monthly payments from them. And the league attempted to get language placed in the bill noting Article 19 of the state constitution guaranteeing that the money be paid back, but unfortunately we're not able to. So if it comes August, September, we hear that they're thinking about not giving us the money back, we will come to you for support, letter of support, if your council feels that that's appropriate. I'm not sure if you have applied for your Prop 1B funds yet, but if you're not, we're urging you to please do it now, because what we're hoping is that the state will see this money as being taken and used by the cities, because the Department of Finance has ruled that you can use this money to backfill for any projects you may have used your highway users tax for. So if they see this money sitting there, they're going to say, hey, these guys must not need the money, they're not coming after it, right? So we're encouraging the cities, if you have not already, please apply for your Prop 1B monies. It's also used to lose the money. It has to be used within 3 years of the time that it is allocated. There's also $500 million in Prop 84 funds. Now, I'm not quite sure what this is. I've not totally investigated it, but I was looking at it today because I had a question from a city manager in Stockton. And some of it has to do with water treatment programs. So, and I understand I was speaking with your consultant just now, so you may want to look into whether that Prop 84 funds can be used for something that you're doing here. I'm not quite sure. Do you have a question? Sorry,
No, I'm
okay.
fine, Steve.
Okay, after the governor made this decision to sell the bonds, the legislator's analyst's office came up with some proposals that we're very worried about. This is transferring the Prop 172 sales tax money to the county to pay for the new parole realignment that they've decided to push. elimination of the COPS program, which is Citizens Option for Public Safety, the Small Rural Sheriff's Program grant, and also to eliminate booking fees. This proposal will cost your city $149,430. So what we're doing is we're encouraging you to have your police officers and police chiefs and fire chiefs contact your legislators and impress upon them how important it is that this money not be taken away from you. Give them examples such as we will have to either eliminate so many positions in our police or fire department or not be able to add this many positions in our police or fire department. Once your police chiefs or fire chiefs contact the legislators, please have them get back to me to tell me what their responses were. We're trying to get a feel for how our legislators in the area feel about this proposal. There was a hearing today in Sacramento by both the Senate and Assembly Subcommittee number 4. And none of our legislators sat on that. Not your legislator. Some in my division did. Senator Machado did. But there's still, it may, if it ends up going to the full Senate or Assembly, we're going to need support from, and the Police Officer Association, apparently his Chiefs Association apparently has really been pounding them and letting them know that we're very, very concerned about losing those monies. I do have some good news for you, though. The state has not even mentioned taking our Prop 42 funds or our property taxes, so that's good. We're not, don't have to worry about that. But there are some things the league is very, very concerned about. One of them is SB 375. We've been trying to work with the author, Senator Steinberg, and get some amendments made to it, but right now we're concerned that in his attempt to lower the greenhouse gases, which we all want to do, but we've seen the effects of it, whether we decide, whether we know what causes that, we know it's happening. They want to take away our local control by dictating our growth policies and threatening our cities if we do not follow their rules by withholding transportation funds. We're also concerned about Prop 98. Now this is noted, touted to be eminent domain reform, but actually what it's going to do is it's going to erode our local land use planning and undermine your public and water sewer projects. So if the time comes, again, we will come to you for letters of support if your council feels that it's appropriate and you decide you'd like to do that. I just want to tell you that I am your conduit to the league. The league is your conduit to Sacramento. You, like a lot of other small cities, don't have lobbyists. We are your lobbyists in Sacramento. I'm here to work for you. I'll be handing out my business card to all of you. Please feel free to contact me. I would encourage you to attend all the league functions. The Planners Institute is the end of March. We have the division dinner, which is March 27th, which is going to be in Modesto at the museum. We really encourage you for you to come. Senator Denham will be speaking, and we also have a representative from the state who will be talking about the mortgage crisis. We have openings on some committees. The Environmental Quality Policy Board has an opening, and we also have a large position on the board of directors. We'd like to get as many people as we can from the Central Valley because the more presence we have with Senator Cogdill, especially now being a leader of the Republican Party, we're hoping to be able to bring some, presence to the Central Valley. And if there's any other questions for you you'd like to ask me?
Anyone have any questions of Steve?
I'd like to
Well,
pass
thank you very much, Steve.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, Steve.
I love these small cities. As you know, being from a small city, I
Thank
really
you.
enjoy it. I had to ask where your city hall is and where your things are at. Though. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I got one last night.
Items from the public, non-agenda items at this time.
Mayor Pro
if you-
Tem, before we go on to that item, I'd like to item number C, which would be an introduction by our police chief.
Oh, excellent.
Good evening, members of City Council. It's with great pleasure that I introduce you tonight two newest members of the Newman Police Department, our two new canines. Due to a rather generous donation that was received last week, we were able to purchase our two new canines last week and just brought them home recently. So without further ado, I'll have Officer Jay Hutchins bring forward Arco. Arco is 3 years old. He is a Dutch Shepherd. And then I'll ask Officer Chad Earl to bring forward Jackson. There you go. Jackson is a 2-year-old Belgian Malinois. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And right now, what we're having is a period of time. It's a 4 to 5 week socialization period for the canines to become accustomed to the handlers and their families. It is a new environment for them. They recently arrived from Europe, so they're going through jet lag and cultural shock.
You got
And,
Wait a second.
and after the 4 to 5 week socialization period, they will go into a 2-week training period. And Sheriff Adam Christensen has been gracious enough to allow us to train up with his canine handlers, and they'll train up our,
Modesto, was that?
no, the sheriff of Stanislaus County.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and so we'll be training with his troops.
Excellent.
As a matter of fact, his troops were down south when we purchased the dogs and helped us with that process because, of course, they're more subject matter experts than we are, as we're new to this field. A couple things I'd like to point out, and that is, after the 2-week training period, they do have to be certified before they can go into patrol operations. So they will be post-certified before we deploy them on the street. I'd just like to report out to the council that so far the community response has been overwhelming. We haven't even really started our fundraising efforts, but yet we received, like I said before, a very generous donation allowed us to purchase the canines. I also wish to thank Dr. Susie Sullivan of the Westside Animal Hospital for donating her veterinarian services. She's providing free examinations and x-rays of our canines. We need to make sure that they're perfectly healthy before we go any further. So she has offered those services at no cost to the city. I'm very grateful for those services. Also, I talked with a lady by the name of Richie Grant. She's the widow of a Tuolumne County Sheriff's deputy who was killed in the line of duty. And her donation to our program is she's going to purchase ballistic vests for our canines.
Wow.
So that's a phenomenal donation. I've also received correspondence from the National Association of Chiefs of Police, and they will match up to $5,000 in donations that we receive. So we have that fundraising effort out there. And also, I'm pleased to announce tonight that we are going to have a crab feed fundraiser for our canine program. It's going to be held at the FDS Hall on Saturday, April 26th. And more information is going to go out on that. And I'd like to thank Manish Takar, the owner of the Shell Station Subway store. He is putting the cost up front to allow us to purchase the crab and move forward with this fundraising effort. So, and with that, if you have any questions of me or the canine handlers, or if you'd like to ask the canines any questions, feel free.
Chief, there's also going to be schooling for the handlers as well, right?
Yes,
Post?
yeah, exactly right.
Good.
And not only that, there's also school for the supervisor of the canine unit.
Great.
We need more school than they do.
I'll bet.
I've got a question.
Yeah,
Do your dogs respond to English commands, or it seems like when the county's dogs were here, they were given commands in,
German.
I thought it was German.
German.
German, Dutch,
Yeah.
and some Czech,
depending upon the country that they came from.
Okay.
where they were trained.
Yeah.
He's mostly German, a little bit of Dutch. That one's mixed also. He likes to play a lot.
Well, congratulations, guys. We're very happy for you.
Thank you. And, you know, I like to report out on one donation in particular, and I think it'll grab the attention of the council. A couple months ago, we had a citizen come talk about dissatisfaction with police response to problems in her neighborhood. And she made a donation to the canine program of $100. And here's what she wrote. She goes, Chief Yuleberry, please accept our appreciation and gratitude to all of the officers of the Newman Police Department. We would like to especially thank you and Sergeant Lemus for your continual efforts in keeping our neighborhood safe. Please accept this donation on behalf of our family for your canine fundraising campaign. So I'd like to report out that we've had very successful problem-oriented policing project in her neighborhood.
Good.
Okay?
Outstanding.
Great.
Okay, and with that, thank you
Well,
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a great day. Did these guys require overtime when they were extra hours?
Nice guy.
No, sir, they don't.
Well, thank you very much.
Extra biscuit.
It's really special when something like this comes together in a town, you know, it really is wonderful because having these dogs, of course, are going to do a lot for our community, and I know that our police force is excited, and everyone should be excited in the community that we have police dogs. I know years ago they had police dogs, and of course we lost them, and probably budget cut or whatever, but anyway, we have them back, and it's great to see the dogs. This, items from the public, these are non-agenda items. If there's any non-agenda items that someone would like to come forward at this time.
Yeah, forgive me, I don't know the way this works. I just wanted to let Chief know that I'm not here as far as to complain about the police department whatsoever. I am Tiffany Schaefer. I live at the Classics in SCM Homes, northeast corner, way over there. And we've since November of last year, we've had a lot of break-ins. We've had a lot of things being stolen. We've had some aggressive incidences with scam artists trying to sell things. The very last one we had, it was pretty bad, and actually I'm really glad it did not get any worse. But and by investigating, and Officer Villalobos and Officer Hutchins, who was just here, actually Chief brought Officer Hutchins to our first neighborhood watch. But by getting information from Officer Villalobos, we didn't realize that there's a priority, priority calls. And being that our phone call saying that there's this aggressive guy, he's on something, he unfortunately had, like a dog bite or something the priority was higher than ours. So I was just thanking God that it wasn't any worse than it could have been. But so I went down the next day and I talked with Officer Villalobos, and he had spoken with the chief, and our neighborhood wanted to get together with the neighborhood watch. We feel that, we kind of felt like we're on our own. The very first phone call I made as far as something being stolen, it was 2 officers I haven't seen since. And they were just kind of like candid, like, this kind of happens. And I said, well, what do we need to do to give you guys more help? And he was just like, you know what, we've been asked, there have been people that have gone down and asked for a long time and nothing's ever happened. But once we started this, we had Officer Hutchins, and everything's been great. We had the SM Homes, they actually donated money so we can get signs over there. So I'm basically here saying we are doing our part, but one of the phone calls we did make, we got some sort of, we got a dispatch unit, other than Newman. And they basically told my husband, you do what you have to do, which that could mean so many different things. And I think, this is not a vigilante type of a thing. Thank God he's not a crazy man, And that's when we found out from Officer Hutchins what we are allowed to do. So I'm basically here on behalf of that entire row right there. They're part of our, raise your hands guys, stand up, whatever. It's just part of our Neighborhood Watch community, which myself and Chris have brought together, and actually talking with Steve Mothersell. We're also trying to get the villas incorporated over there. But the way I look at it in numbers, which I'm sure hoping you guys do too. We've got 11,000 people here. We've got more people moving in over there. A lot of us have families, like my mom and her husband live right across the street. Rick Foss and the superintendent of the school district, his parents live across the street from them. We all go to church. We're a very close-knit community. We can only do so much. But when you have, like I said, 11,000 people and more coming, I feel these guys need help. I personally can't speak for the chief, but hearing down through the lines and the things that go on, they need help. So basically I'm here for the community that we have, and we just don't have presence. We don't have officer presence out there. you know? And I don't want to feel alone. The Neighborhood Watch does not want to feel like we're all alone, you know, on the scale of priorities. And I understand. I mean, make no mistake. Somebody hurt is way better than someone on drugs being aggressive. I understand that. But at the same time, when you've got one cop working an 8-hour shift on a Saturday, that's, you know, and I understand 2 were out, but even still, you add those 2 back in, and that just doesn't seem enough for me. So that's all I'm pretty much here for. But Chief has been wonderful. He's helped out, and he also is putting something in the index, if I'm not mistaken, on how we're supposed to get the signs put up. So we're waiting for that. But they've given us everything that we've needed. And so as far as these guys are awesome. So, but I'm just wanting to get them more help as far as the community feeling safe. So.
I think you've taken the biggest step in forming your group, because you have to look out for one another.
Yeah.
And I think the chief could tell you that, you know, a lot of good things have happened just in the last 6, 7, 8 months. We have added a body, and as we grow, we'll continue, I'm sure. But you know that this council, as far as I'm concerned, and me in particular, are in full 100% support of our police department. And I think what you saw tonight was just another example.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Of the good things that are happening. I would advise you just stay in contact with the chief's office and with the officers and with your group.
Mm-hmm.
Report to the police department, you know, strange things are going on.
Right.
And don't take any action upon yourself,
Well, yeah, oh
obviously,
gosh,
but
no. I just had a
but
guinea
make
pig,
that make
just
that
like
call
I
to
am.
them, because you're their best witness when
Right.
they're not there.
And we are, and we're willing to support them as well as them supporting us. And like I said, I'm definitely not here to bag on them whatsoever. I mean, these guys have been awesome with us. They've come out on their own volition and spent like an hour or so with us explaining things. I don't know what else to do. I don't want us to feel alone out there. We do have some older folks there. I moved from Pleasanton, where if you made a phone call, you had like 4 cops there. I'm not expecting like 4 patrolmen there for, you know, an argument, but, you know, we don't get patrol, and I know they're busy, and I'm not saying that. I just feel like if there's something we can do to add more rather than waiting on, say, Patterson, which if you think about it, it's like a 20-minute drive, or Gustine, 10 minutes, and even if they don't know where we are, you know, it's gonna cause a little bit more time. But that's all I'm here to say.
That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Is there any other non-agenda items?
My name is Kirk Jensen. I live at 2237 Spring Court. I had the community's code enforcement officer come to my house and remove material from the side of my house, and I don't understand how it is that they were given the power to walk up to my house and remove these items. There was 15 gallons of paint used to paint my house. There was a 5-gallon jug of 2-stroke oil that was used for my yard equipment. My grandson's bicycles were taken. You know, these things were listed as items of eyesore, which I live at the end of a court, and the only way you can see these things is to come down my street to the end of my street. I wasn't given a list of anything that was taken. These are just things that I am slowly figuring out over the time that has been taken. I figure it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400 of materials. Shovels, rakes, bags of tan bark, decorative rock. You know, they're complaining about my yard not looking nice, and they're taking my yard tools that are on the side of my house. And I don't understand what gives them the right to look over my fence into my backyard. And in the process of, the neighbors told me that the community code enforcement officer and the officer that was there were harassing the dog that was in the backyard. It's not my dog. I am babysitting this dog for a friend of mine, and you know, I really do not appreciate this. I am glad that there's the 2 new K-9 officers. I'm glad that things are going much better. We had 2 break-ins on our court. One of them was me. One of them was the house next door while it was vacant. The officers did come out to that, but there's been no answers on that. Would like to hear back as to what happened to the $800 that was stolen out of my wife's truck. And, you know, the little things like this, that we've got no answers as we keep asking and keep asking. So I thought I would come here tonight and address the community with it. Thank you.
Kurt, I would encourage you to speak with the chief and meet with him. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
I forgot, these guys were.
We only get one chance.
I'm actually giving you an invitation, so you can't turn that down. This Sunday, we are having our next neighborhood watch meeting, and these guys reminded me.
Not this Sunday, the 16th.
The 16th, see, I'm nervous, zip. So we are inviting one of you to come and be there if you would like.
What day was that?
It's Sunday the 16th at 4 o'clock.
The food and mall?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, 4 o'clock at Kim Fox's house. She's there on the end. If you want to give them your address, Kim.
203 Tower, I'm the only one on the block.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Uh-huh.
Hors d'oeuvres will be served.
Yes, refreshments, yeah.
That's a good thing.
Okay. Does anyone else have any non-agenda items at this time? Thank you. Consent calendar. Waive all readings of ordinance and resolution except by title. Approve all warrants. Approval of minutes, February 26, 2008 regular meeting, and March 4th, 2008 special meeting. D, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all master agreements, program supplement agreements, funds exchange agreements, fund transfer agreements, and/or amendments thereto with the California Department of Transportation.
I'd move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Next, public hearing, and this adoption resolution number 2008, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 281, mistletoe abatement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a code enforcement issue that is before you. 43 abatement notices were sent to properties to remove their mistletoe. Of the 43, you have 24 people that did not comply with the notice. Mistletoe is a parasite that grows on trees. It's spread by the birds that eat the waxy berries that it produces. And if the mistletoe is left unabated, it will eventually take over and kill the tree. It cannot be completely eradicated, but it can be controlled by pruning and cutting it off the trees. The notices that were sent to these property owners gave them instructions as to all nuisance abatement procedures, of their options, and also of their right to object at tonight's public meeting. Staff recommendation is that the Council authorize the abatement of the mistletoe by adopting the resolution 2008, next in number, declaring the existence of a public nuisance. Any questions?
Council have any questions? Since it's a public hearing, I'd like to open it to the public. Anyone like to come forward?
My name is Kurt Jensen. Can I start? When I moved into my house on Spring Court, the tree that was planted in my front yard was sick. I said something to the city about it several times, wanting to cut this tree down. It's been 16 years, and I still have this sick tree in my front yard. It has been in the last few years that these trees have been turned over to us to do with as we please. Several of my neighbors have cut down the trees. I'm not one that's wanting to cut the shade down now that the tree has been there for so long. But it seems to me that the city planted the trees and would not allow me to do anything with it. And these people, I'm speaking for people I don't know, but I'm sure there's a lot of them that believe that the city should be at least a little bit in charge of some of the cost on this. I think it should be helped out. I'm planting my own tree in my front yard at my own cost, but I'm stuck with the tree that the city gave me until otherwise.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come forward at this time? If not, I'll bring it back to the board, council for,
I move for adoption.
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Regular business, report on the Water Master Plan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We have our consultants from Ecologic Engineering here tonight to do a presentation and update you on the Water Master Plan. And with that, afterwards, staff will start opening up a 30-day review period, and then this will come back to the council for action sometime in April.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Mario Guadamus. I work with Ecologic Engineering. I've been working along with a co-worker of mine, Jerry Labuddy, and preparing the Water Master Plan, and today I'll be presenting the results of our study. The presentation is briefly, we're going to go over the purpose of the Water Master Plan, some of the existing and future potable water demands that the city will experience over the years. We'll discuss water quality, water supply plan, which we discussed during the Water Master Plan, and recommended capital and improvements plans, and future steps that the city needs to take. The principal purpose of the Water Master Plan was in order to address some of the water quality issues with respect to the discharge at the wastewater end, specifically with address some of the salinity discharge limits that the regional board is concerned with. So some of the issues that we wanted to take a look at is how to reduce the amount of salinity coming into the wastewater treatment plant. Therefore, that way we can reduce the overall salinity of the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. So as I go through this report, we always kept in mind that the best available option for the city is to convert to a surface water source, which will improve the water quality that people are drinking, in addition to reduce the salinity issues at the wastewater end. Another point that we wanted to look at was to evaluate the city's capacity to meet its current and demands and future demands, identify any deficiencies within the system, estimate future water demands, evaluate capital improvements alternatives, and determine the planning level cost. So now we move on to the second phase of our study, which is the existing future and water demands. Some of the things that we took into consideration in addressing future water demands is working with our adopted general plan, looked into the existing city limits, which includes the areas within the city limits that are currently developed and the areas that will be developed in the future that are currently called infill areas. And in addition, we took a look at some of the general plan areas which are described as primary sphere of influence and secondary sphere of influences. The following map shows a map that most of you probably are familiar with. Right down the middle is Highway 33 with the railroad. And this is some of the different land uses as described in the city's general plan. Okay. In order to make projections for what the future water demands will be for the city, we first had to take a step back and look at what the historical water demands have been in the city. This following graph shows the trend lines since January of 2003 till December of 2006, showing that the water demands, specifically during the summer, have been increasing. And this was important for us to develop factors that we can project in the future. This table shows that the population has increased from 7,000 to 10,000 people over the last 4 years. Congruently, the water demands have increased from 1.9 to 2.4 million gallons per day, and that has equated to approximately 250 gallons per person per day over the last 4 years. This graph shows that the majority of the water is used to meet the residential demands, some industrial demands, and the portion is unaccounted for water, which actually it's kind of ambiguous because it actually incorporates water that's used to irrigate the city parks and the schools and other public offices. Now moving forward, we wanted to take a look at the future land uses as described in the general plan. And you guys are familiar with this image as well. It's pretty similar to the previous one, but allocates the future land uses, which were actually used to develop the future water demands for each area. This table summarizes what the populations and estimated water needs are going to be for the city. Right now, the population is about 10,300 people, and the production's 2.4 MGD, and it is estimated that a build-out, it will increase to about 45,000, and the total demand will increase to about 11.4 million gallons. The far column shows that actually specifically the lower rightmost column shows this, the gallons per capita per day remain about 250, which is about what it is right now. And that is important only for us to make sure that we were doing our calculations correctly, is make sure that we weren't veering off track too much. This map shows the existing city infrastructure. The color lines just depict different sizes of water lines, and also shows the location of the four wells, the four principal wells that supply water to the city. The total water that is supplied by the four wells is about 9.8 million gallons per day. However, if one of the wells, if your biggest well was out of service due to maintenance or any other unforeseen emergency, your total pumping capacity will decrease to about 6.2 million gallons per day. Your current maximum day demand is about 6.5 million gallons per day, which actually it means that we're pretty good still, that the city can still meet its water demands, although albeit it's close, but it's still the city has plenty of pumping capacity still. Now, something else we wanted to take a look at on scenarios. What would happen during a fire flow during those max days, and your demand increases to 11.5 million gallons per day? That is more than your total active capacity, about 9.8, but you could possibly meet it. Some of the different ways that the city may be able to address that is by drilling additional wells, or by installing storage tanks. In the bottom two rows over here show that if for a 3-hour fire flow, you would need about 1.6 million gallons in storage, and your current wells with the largest well out of service can provide you with 0.8 million gallons, which means that you probably need about another 800,000 gallons of storage if you were to go that route to address the fire flows. Now we'll discuss some of the water quality in the city. So as I mentioned previously, the issue of most concern is the high salinity of the potable water, with it being about 1,400 microsiemens, and also high hardness, which tends to cause taste and odor problems in some of your residencies, and some of them may be inclined to put water softener, which further exacerbate your salinity issues at your wastewater treatment plant. This pie chart shows briefly that the source water is the principal contributor to your salt into your wastewater effluent. Industrial makes up about 20%, and residential about 19%. In summary, the hardness in a typical system is about less than 300 milligrams per liter, and Newman has about 350 to 450 milligrams per liter. The salinity, ideally, it would be about 900 or less microsiemens. Newman has about 1,200 to 1,600 in its potable water. Ideally, at the discharge end at the wastewater treatment plant, you have somewhere about 1,200 to 1,600 microsiemens in your wastewater. So your current groundwaters are at about 1,200, 1,600 already. So add to that your domestic usage and industrial usage is going to exacerbate the problem even further. Now this portion will be talking about how to solve your saltwater issues. Specifically looking at your supply alternatives. We looked at the groundwaters and potentially meeting your future demands through the continuous usage of your wells. In addition, looked at surface water by means of Central California Irrigation District. We also took a look at some of the treatment, what kind of treatment you would require, and also more importantly, the design capacity, how big of a water treatment plant you would need. But before we could look at that, we had to kind of make an estimate of what the implementation would be. When would we anticipate a surface water treatment plant to be online? How much water would be available from in this case, the Central California Irrigation District, and what interim improvements we're going to need to meet until that water treatment plant goes online. Some of the issues that we looked at with groundwater were if the city will continue to have salinity issues, and also hardness. If the city, as shown previously, the ultimate capacity, the ultimate demand is about 11.4 million gallons. If the city was to keep on relying on their groundwater wells, further studies will need to be done to make sure that the underlying aquifer is able to meet those demands as well. And also a closing look will have to be done on the water quality, see that it doesn't change over time. Some of the surface water items that we wanted to take a look at was the proximity of the raw water source. In this case, the two areas that we looked at were water from either the Delta Mendota Canal or the California Aqueduct. The type of the water quality from either one of those sources, which one would best benefit the city, the time for its availability, and that goes more in line with when the city can procure an agreement with CCID to get raw water and how much of it. And more importantly is how much of the future demands will be complemented by treated surface water versus your current groundwater wells. That is critical because depends on how much the cost vary considerably from the different options that the city has. So in summary, we anticipate that the City of Newman will continue to rely somewhat on their groundwaters to supplement their current water demands. Raw water for treatment will be supplied through the Central California Irrigation District, which can provide water from either the Delta Mendota Canal or the California Aqueduct. some of the advantages or disadvantages from either source. We'll start with the Delta Mendota Canal. One of the principal disadvantage with using the Delta Mendota Canal is that it is principally used for irrigating farmlands between the Tracy Power Plant and the Mendota Pool. Therefore, you will have, there will probably be more stringent permitting requirements from the Department of Public Health to allow that to be used as a source of surface water for treatment. But it is closer to the city than the California aqueduct, so there will be less capital improvements to get the water from there to the city. The principal advantage of the California aqueduct is that the principal usage is to transport potable water to the Southern California cities. Therefore, it is more heavily protected from cross-contamination from surface runoff, and therefore permitting will be a lot easier. The principal disadvantage with using the California aqueduct is that it is about a mile farther, and you have to go underneath I-5 and the California aqueduct. So the capital improvements to get water from there to the city are more than the Delta Mendota Canal. So in order to further investigate, okay, what does the city need to do in order to make this water treatment plant conversion for providing surface water to the city a reality? We had to make an estimate, and we or more or less we had to kind of pick dates, and we anticipate that from now until 2009 the city will continue to negotiate with CCID water purveying agreement. Between 2010 and 2015, we anticipated that the city will look into what the environmental and permitting issues will be to site the treatment plant, and also to get it approved through the California Public Health, in addition to doing obtaining some kind of agreement with a design engineering firm for design of the water treatment plant. And then by 2016, we anticipate that the water treatment plant will be online. Now, none of this are hard dates. This is purely something that we had to kind of go off and kind of pick, because there are so many pending questions with regards to when the city and how much raw water the city can obtain. So we basically use this as a guidelines, but all of this can be offset. I believe that as long as the regional board sees that the city is continuing to make progress into solving some of their salinity issues at the wastewater end, they can extend and work with the city as well. So this is purely for guidance for us to develop a plan, and it is subject to changes as things happen on the ground. So anticipating that a water treatment plant is constructed by 2015, the average day demand is estimated to be about 3.7 million gallons per day. The max day is about 10 million gallons per day. And now the max month is actually a ratio or a number that we looked into finding sort of a medium between a treatment plant that could meet the average day demand or the maximum day demand. And maximum month basically is, we took a look at the city's historical average 30 days during the summer, 30-day demands, and picked the largest number to develop a factor and compare it with that annual usage. And therefore, the maximum month is sort of like between the maximum day and the average day. In the same way, we also wanted to take a look, what would it take at build-out? And the build-out, the average day demand is about 11.4 million gallons. The max day is 30.8 million gallons. And the max month, 18.2 million gallons. So again, one of the design capacity options for a water treatment plant by 2015 would be to look at a 3.7 million gallon treatment plant. Some of the things that need to be considered is that this alternative would be the least cost, costing about $11 million for treatment alone. This is only $11 million for building a water treatment plant, and does not take into consideration some of the raw water and storage and other infrastructure that's needed to convey the raw water to the city. But so $11 million for it. This alternative relies heavily on groundwater wells to meet maximum day and peak hour demands. So therefore, it results in higher salinity within the system and also variable. It kind of creates zones where that are closer to wells to have poorer water quality than areas that are closer to the water treatment plant, which will have the best quality water. So there is a potential for people to complain. The second alternative was to look at the maximum month alternative. This one has a higher cost than the first. It's about 18 million treatment alone. There is less reliance on groundwater than the previous one, and therefore the fluctuations in the water quality are lessened. The third option is the 10 million gallon one. This one has by far the highest capital cost for treatment, is $30 million. This one relies the least on groundwater wells to supplement your demands, and therefore your water qualities will probably be will fluctuate the least throughout the system. However, it is by far the most expensive as well. So in order to keep on giving the city an alternative of which one will be besides cost, we wanted to take a look, all right, so how will either one of these alternatives affect the salinity going into the wastewater treatment plant? And for that, we created a scenario model where we assumed that the average day and peaking factors for 2015 were considered, that the wells would supplement any water that the water treatment plant could not meet, and that instantaneous mixing of the surface water and the groundwater wells occurred. The results of the scenario showed that with an average day treatment plant, your blended EC electrical conductivity going into your wastewater treatment plant is reduced from 1337, which is your groundwaters, to 567 during an average annual period. However, during your max days, it increases to 974. Using a water treatment plant to meet the maximum month, your blended EC decreases to 456 microsiemens, and during your max day, it goes up to 775, which is less than the first alternative. And then finally, the maximum day scenario, your system salinity is decreased to 435 microsiemens, which is essentially the salinity of the California aqueduct, and you couldn't get anything lower than that. So in the short of it, all three of these alternatives will solve your salinity issues at the wastewater end. We kind of wanted to approach somewhere between 500 and 600 microsiemens within the system. So based on that, the recommended improvement is the maximum month alternative. This one, as shown previously, does solve your wastewater salinity issues. It does rely somewhat on groundwaters to meet some of your peak days and peak hours, some other in fire flow conditions. It's about $18 million for treatment alone. It does strike a balance between the two alternatives of max day or average day, and it also utilizes the city's existing wells to so that they're not throwaway items, and relies less on the surface water during max day events. So given that the treatment plant construction is going to have to wait until about 2015 in our scenario, the city will need to do something in order to address water demands until that time. So some of the things that need to be that we're recommending that need to be done is drill at least one additional well to meet the max day demands, and to build a storage tank and booster pump station to meet some of the fire flow demands. These items, again, are only to bridge the capacity needs from now until the surface treatment plant goes online. And also to address some of the existing deficiencies within the water demands. And these are not throwaway items. These would be such, because we're going with the max month, this would be used in congruency with the surface water treatment plant when it does go online. The following image shows where we conceptually have located, where the city could potentially locate the treatment, the storage tank and the water well, which is located on about on Inyo Avenue, over by the, I believe it's an elementary school located around that area. We anticipate that the future water treatment plant will be located on the west portion, perhaps past the CCID canal, given that that will give you the least amount of distance to convey water to it from the California aqueduct. The interim improvements to meet the system demands until 2015 are estimated to cost about $6 million. The following image shows an overall conceptual layout on what the city needs to do in order to meet its the 2015 demands. We conceptually laid out a water treatment plant located on the west portion by the CCI canal. The city will require a raw water turnout structure from the California aqueduct through a 24-inch raw water line going again underneath the I-5 and the DMC into the water treatment plant. This initial phase improvements are estimated to cost about $55 million. This shows a zoom out of some of the improvements needed to convey raw water into the water treatment plant, showing a turnout structure, about 4.5 miles of 24-inch raw water, and going into the water treatment plant, which in addition will have on-site storage and booster pump station capacity. This shows a schematic of some of the infrastructure needed to convey treated water from the water treatment plant into the city system. Again, it would be conveyed through a 36-inch line, which will go through the proposed interim improvements on Inyo Road. Going into the build-out, this one is there's less certainty on this, given that this can take about 50 years, and who knows what kind of changes will occur until then. But these are conceptually the city would need to upgrade its raw water turnout structure and upgrade its water treatment plant into by five different phases until getting it to about 21 million gallons per day, and also put in additional wells and tanks throughout the system, in addition to expanding the current transmission system within the city. This additional costs are estimated to be about $108 million. Again, this is between now and 50 years from this date. So some of the next steps that need to be looked into are provide the water master plan available for public review. After that, the city council either will approve it or not. Negotiate raw water supply with CCID. Looked into planning and pre-design of water supply improvements. Evaluate the rate fees for both the existing and the future developments. And look into some of the environmental compliance and permitting issues. And with that, I'll leave it up for any questions.
Mario, just full of good news.
Now you know why I'm sweating.
Has anybody looked into moving to town? Gee.
Mario, I've got several questions for you.
Yep.
Let's go to the chart that says, the existing system capacity.
Yep.
And it deals with the amount that we need to have a reliable fire control flow. I'll let you get there.
Wow, got a lot of tracks. Almost there. Okay.
There we go. Question I have is, do we have the capacity in our lines to get this flow where we need it to go? There's no use requiring that much water if we can't get it to one place or several places.
A detailed hydraulic analysis was not done as far as for scope. I did more of a general. It wasn't part of the scope of work. We mostly wanted to look at some of the more generic look into what it would take to convert the city to a surface water treatment plant. However, I did take a look at what it would take to get some of the transmission systems, some of the water into some of the farther areas specifically. This goes back to, if I may.
Yeah, the map, the one page before it shows your line capacities or your line sizes.
Yeah, though it appears that you do have plenty of capacity within the existing system. However, again, I wanted more to take a look into how the existing system would integrate with the future. When you have wells strategically located around the city, it's easy to get water to any portion. It is more difficult once you have your surface water treatment plant located in one point, and you got to convey all that water to the farthest point. Now, because the city is laid out, it's pretty well laid out to where you could connect the main line and connect it through different points within the city and convey water all the way to the farthest end. It also helps out that the western portion of the city is at a higher elevation than your eastern portion, which would be the farthest areas. So water, even pumping water from this area it's not as difficult as having to pump water from downhill up. So in the short, it looks good.
Okay. I have some other questions also.
Yeah.
In the current groundwater quality, the question I have, you were talking about the salinity right now is 12 to 1600, whatever that term is.
Yeah, microsiemens.
Microsiemens.
Yep.
What is the subsurface water at our treatment plant now? I know one of our concerns earlier, I think we were talking in parts per million, that the subsurface water is at 2,400 parts per million, and that's more or less what our effluent was going out. Is that the same number equated to a different standard?
Yeah, I believe that the 2,400 is TDS, total dissolved solids,
Okay.
which there's a relationship between electrical conductivity and total dissolved solids. In short, you multiply it by a factor of 0.6 times microsiemens, you get your milligrams per liter of TDS. It's not accurate all the way. It really is site dependent. But if your water demands, if your total dissolved solids in the underlying the current water treatment plant is about 24 milligrams per liter, I guess that equates to what, about 35 microsiemens in salinity. Yeah, it's underneath. So basically, it'd be about 35.
I don't worry, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so part of this, I think if I understand your question, the underlying groundwater at the treatment plant is higher right now, and what happens is currently the 1,200 to 1,600, it gets concentrated because of just our normal use of water itself, add salt to it, and then the treatment type that we have at the wastewater treatment plant also tends to concentrate sitting in ponds and that kind of thing, evaporation. So yeah, by the time it actually goes onto the land to be disposed of, it's much higher. So what we looked at is if we get it down below, actually a different slide here, but get it down to that around that 500 to 600, even with all those concentrating effects, the effluent at the treatment plant then matches the groundwater at the treatment plant. Did that answer?
Yeah, that's where we are right now. We're right in that same area of both.
Right now we're higher. Right now we're disposing of effluent that has higher salinity than our underlying groundwater, and that's the issue. That's the problem.
What is that? Those two figures?
Making me pull numbers out of the top of my head.
I'll tell you what, if you don't know, you give them the mic, because that's
Okay.
kind of a key point in what we're trying to accomplish.
I believe it's close to, the 3,500 is close to what the effluent is, and the groundwater is actually relatively similar to this. It might be a little bit higher, it's because of the salt flats as we get closer to the river, but I can give him the actual numbers that we've looked at.
Yeah, if you get those and give them to Michael.
Okay.
And Councilman, don't forget, we have one more master plan to be presenting to the council, and that's the wastewater treatment. Then we're gonna start taking a look at what's going on at the treatment plant, and some of that information will come in that presentation as well, so.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we will dig up some numbers for you.
Okay, I have some additional questions. On the treatment plant capacity, when you're looking, this page right here.
Okay.
And this is looking at if we put in an external source of water coming down, what size pipe do we need to move that amount of water?
The raw water here, let me see. I think I flew through it too fast. The raw water from the California aqueduct to the water treatment plant is about 24 inches in diameter. Now from there we did, again, I didn't do a detailed hydraulic model of the city, but you would need about 36-inch pipe from the treatment plant into the city, which actually it's not 36-inch all the way. It's only a portion of the way until it splits in order to connect into the different areas.
And that's looking at the build-up capacity?
That's actually a good point. The 24-inch, the reason why it's 24 inches is not to meet the 2015, but actually to looking forward into the build-out, because it doesn't make any sense to put in a pipe right now, especially that long of a distance, and then having to come back and rip it out to every single time that you make an upgrade to your water treatment plant. So as far as some of the infrastructure that is permanent, that's going underground, you don't want to come back and rip out again. That's why that's also why the price goes from the treatment plant being only 18 million to the total investment being 54 million, because you're upsizing some of the pipes to meet the future demands.
Beautiful segue into my next question, the $18 million for the treatment plant. And further back here, there was another figure on the total build-out capital costs, $108 million. Those figures are at today's prices, or are those figures looking into the future when we would build it?
Those are actually looking at today's prices, and they're planning level numbers. We put in 30% contingency for construction and another 30% contingency for administration and engineering, and so that they are. We believe we're trying to be conservative, because I believe that it's best for us to come in and give you a conservative number than not a conservative number, and the actual prices to be a lot higher than what you were expecting it to be.
So this is building in an extra 60%, looking that by the time we get around to it, then it should be close to a correct figure.
Well, yeah, the 30% of construction only. The 30% it's engineering and other administration that it's actually something that will be required. The design and some of the paperwork and everything that it's. So besides based only on what we estimate the infrastructure to cost, you could add about exactly 30% to that, and then we added another 30% to all of that. So it's actually higher than 60%.
Yeah, it's 30% of an additional 30%.
Yeah.
Be 45%. I think I've asked enough questions. Thank you.
I had a question.
I don't want to know any more.
You got any money?
No.
In preliminary schedule, I noticed negotiation secure surface water supplies, and that was January 2008 to December 2009. We should actually be negotiating and securing surface water prior to startup, which would be 2016.
Yeah.
So as far as negotiating prices and stuff like that, you mean we're gonna hold that price until we do our startup in 2016?
The negotiations, I don't know about, I actually did not mean negotiating prices for construction. I meant more negotiating the contract agreement with Central California Irrigation District to develop an agreement for them to sell water to the city for conveyance purposes. That's actually what I mean, not prices on the actual construction.
Not construction, I'm talking about the actual water.
Yeah, the actual water, that's something, that's between your attorney that's working along with CCID to develop that contract. So the cost, that's actually another good point is, the cost do not reflect the price of the water that CCID will sell to the city. That will be in addition to, this is purely capital infrastructure cost.
I think I'll start drinking alcohol. Thank you.
Well, I have one additional question. I fibbed to you, I wasn't quite all done. On the interim improvements, of course, I'm a politician, so you could understand why I probably have more things. That's one.
Yep.
Okay, on this cost $6.2 million, the only thing that I see that we're doing is putting in a well, a new tank, and one additional 14-inch line
Yeah.
for $6.2 million.
Yeah, again, we added the 30 and 30% contingencies, but we estimated that the storage tank would be actually about 1 million gallon storage tank, approximately about $2 per gallon, and the 14-inch line about $140 per linear foot, and also the well to be about $1.5 million. So that plus the engineering and administration fees, and then the 30% contingency is what that number adds up to.
Thank you.
And by the way, all these costs are detailedly described in the water master plan, and specifically in the executive summary towards the end of it, and also in chapter 5.
Yeah, it was page 48, item B.
Anything else?
Any further questions?
I just real quick, on that same map on the interim improvements, notwithstanding the fact that this is a tentative site where the new well and tank would be, how did we come to that when that's on the school property?
Again, this is only for conceptual layout purposes. It could be just outside. It's the exact location of it needs to be furtherly investigated.
I'm just kind of curious because just on the other side of that, it's private residential areas, and it could be quite a ways out.
Yeah, and in that case, some of the costs may also be more.
Of course.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind, Council, is you own 10 acres not too far from there, so.
Okay.
That's not the city one.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Even better.
Don't ask him more, it's gonna cost you money.
It keeps costing more money until you ask a question.
Thank you very much. That was an expensive report, but thank you.
If you have any good news, bring that back at some point in time also, please.
I gave you good news last time, remember? The system's doing great for
That was great.
50-50.
Thank you so much.
And Mayor Pro Tem, if I might, and I know one of the council members touched on it briefly, I don't recall which one, but we will, again, we've been waiting for this report so we can go to CCID and to start entering in some preliminary discussions with them. Some of the costs that typically are involved with that is you purchase the right to purchase water from them, and then you purchase the water as well. So that's part of where we're at. So we're working with a law firm out of Sacramento, and they're developing a strategy for us right now and how to enter into that and secure water rights and move forward. So
Thank you very much. Okay, regular business B. First reading and introduction of ordinance number 2008, next number, an ordinance establishing new water and wastewater rates.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As you may recall, beginning, I believe it was December 26th, we sent out notices for a majority protest vote for a Prop 218 vote. On February 12th, the City Council held a public hearing and also allowed the public to speak, and then completed the Proposition 218 protest vote as required by state law. It was determined at that meeting that a majority did not come forward, and so therefore the council went forward and adopted the new rate schedule as required in following those laws. Part of what we need to do right now is again follow up administration of the municipal code, and that is to adopt an ordinance establishing those rates as they were published in the Prop 218 exhibits. So, and that would be for water and sewer services. So with that, we're asking you to today introduce the ordinance, and then a public hearing will be held at the second meeting in March.
Thank you, Michael. Could I have some direction on this ordinance, please?
Do you need a motion to introduce the ordinance?
Do we need
Yes.
that?
Yes.
You do?
I'd be glad to make that motion.
I would second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Regular business C, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution adopting fees for parking, municipal codes, and vehicle violations, new bail schedule.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. This resolution before you tonight is cleanup legislation which allows us to update our master fee schedule to bring it in alignment with recently adopted ordinances. Recently, we adopted a refuge container ordinance. The fees of $50 for first offense, $100, $250 for the third and subsequent were set by ordinance, and this would allow us to update our master fee schedule. The next section, Newman Municipal Code 9100.030, non-vehicular objects in the right-of-way. Specifically, these would be basketball hoops. Staff recommends the fines be set at $50, $100, and $250, which would be in alignment with the refuge containers. Newman Municipal Code Section 9.13.030, the noise regulations. Staff recommends fines of $100, $200, and $500, and this would be increased over the other fees due to the generally offensive nature of these types of violations and breaching the peace and tranquility of our neighborhoods. Newman Municipal Code 9.11.110, the social host ordinance. The fees of $500 and $1,000 were set within the adopted language of the ordinance. And Newman Municipal Code Section 9.12.110, the junk and scrap metal recyclers, the fee of $500 was set within the adopted language of the ordinance. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No question. But thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. And I'm hoping that we do pass this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Bring it back to the council for direction.
I would move to approve resolution number 2008, next in number, resolution adopting fees for parking, municipal code, and vehicle violations, new bail schedule.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, regular business D, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution certifying that the water waste treatment plant plant basin project is categorically exempt per section 15301 of the CEQA guidelines.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As we continue to try to get this project out of Regional Water Quality Control Board's office, one item we need to do is obviously pass a CEQA determination. A CEQA determination, again, is California Environmental Quality Act. The state legislature has deemed that some projects are exempt from CEQA. is our determination that this project is exempt from CEQA, again, under section 15301 of the CEQA guidelines, which states, Class 1 existing facilities consist of the operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, leasing, licensing, and minor alterations of existing public structures involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond the existing at the time of the lead agency's determination. We're not increasing our capacity. We're not altering our waste discharge requirement. Therefore, we believe we are compliant with Class 1 of the existing facilities. So, and this also, as you look at it, further states that this does include publicly owned utilities for sewage. So with that, we're asking that you adopt this resolution certifying the category exemption and direct staff to file the CAT exempt with the county recorder.
Any questions from the council? If not, bring it back to council for direction.
I'd move to adopt resolution number 2008, next to number of resolution certifying that the wastewater treatment plant storage plant basin project is categorically exempt per section 15301 of the CEQA guidelines.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Next item would be item from Supervisor Jim D. Martini.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Martina. So I have just a couple of things today. The Crow's Landing Air Base Steering Committee will be meeting tomorrow for a fourth quarter review of where the project is at. It meets 7:30, the County Administration Building. At that time, we're going to be talking about the Union Pacific dialogue for the track through Niles Canyon and everything that pertains to the project, the where it is right now, as far as I-bonds and all that. There is a breaking story that just came out just this afternoon where the Transportation Commission staff, now the Transportation Commission itself won't meet until April, they are recommending $25 million of the I-bond money go into this project. So I haven't read the text of how they came to that conclusion, but apparently this is, I got a call from the Bee this afternoon, and there is a small news story about it, so I don't know much more about it than that. There was a $75 million request to buy the track from Union Pacific that goes through Niles Canyon, that would connect the Port of Oakland to roughly Highway 33. That part has been denied. So I can only assume that the project, the $25 million is on the air base itself. I don't know what else it could be for. But right now there is no right-of-way set from the Port of Oakland to Highway 33. There is a line going through there, but it's owned by Union Pacific, so now, without some agreement with Union Pacific or the sale of that line, I don't see how this can happen yet, but since this just happened this afternoon, I don't know any more about it than that. I wish I did. If this happened yesterday, I could give you a little better report, but this happened about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Just in another topic, the West Side Healthcare Task Force does meet here Thursday at 7 o'clock, right here in Newman in these chambers. If anybody from the public is interested or anybody else, it's a group of a collaboration of the 3 cities of Newman, Patterson, Gustine, 2 healthcare districts, the county, and all the medical facilities that are here in this area. As we're trying to put together a working model of what might work here in this area to provide urgent care on a 24-hour basis. We do have your Councilman Kelly and myself and Keith Boggs are going to meet with a doctor next week who had tried something like this a few years back but had trouble getting reimbursement from insurance companies. So we're going to try to determine where he went wrong and how we can pick up the pieces from that and maybe make this model work for us. I wish that we would have had this meeting before the task force meet, but it just wasn't possible. But we do have a fair amount of things on the agenda as the packets have been mailed out and more statistical analysis. This is, of course, a long-term difficult project to put together. One of the things that we will be doing in probably a future meeting is bringing in Kaiser into the talks too, because there's a fair amount of people who commute to the Bay Area that have Kaiser insurance, and this is something that we'd have to deal with at a medical facility too, because Kaiser is a little picky on who treats their patients, so we do have to work that out. The model is possible to put together using, a combination of industrial medicine and urgent care and some specialty services. I think it's possible to put together, but there's a lot of factors involved in the dealing with insurance companies, 2 healthcare districts, and the medical facilities that are already here. And of course, our goal is to fill in the gaps that we have here on the west side. Now, through the work we've done this last year, we know what those gaps are. And it's how we put together a model that works is our task now. So that next meeting will be Thursday.
Jim, I've got a question for you. Help me to understand why staff would come out and make an announcement like they did without the consent of the board. I don't understand that.
Well, I can only, I can guess at how it's done. And generally, in the county, staff will make a recommendation for a planning decision or something like that. Your staff, I would assume, makes recommendations to the council. So this is a staff report, like your board packet, it's going to the board. I obviously don't agree with it, and there's a lot, what their reasoning is, I don't know, but this is going to have to be public information, so I don't know how they came to that conclusion. But I would assume it was, it's like a typical staff report that goes to a board or a council for an agenda item.
Usually doesn't come out in the press, though, before it goes to the board.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Unless you want to publicize it.
Well, apparently they did. Because,
Very apparent.
Because, I just got this afternoon, and obviously, I have a lot of problems with a, 4,800 acre project, especially when we asked for a 1,500 acre project. And there is plenty of concern about the problems, the trails and the trains running through the town, and traffic problems, and 140,000 vehicle trips a day is going to cause to the area, plus, where the water is going to come from, and who's going to pay for all this infrastructure. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but this was just breaking news, so I wish I knew more about it, I could tell you, but this brings up a host of other questions that are going to have to be answered. Okay?
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for that update. Next item would be item from city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A lot of excitement today at the beginning of the meeting with those 2 dogs. I think that's a great accomplishment. It wasn't, but 2 months ago that I was meeting with the Police Officers Association, the POA, about this project, and here we have the dogs already. So it's a lot of good excitement for the community. I think this is going to be a good project for the community and program that they're just really going to get behind and embrace. So. Just a quick announcement. As you know, we did, as part of the mid-year budget, eliminate a part-time position in the police department, clerical support staff, and then added a full-time position. That recruitment has been completed. We actually have 1 candidate in background right now. So it's anticipated that on or around April 1st, that person will be starting full-time with the Newman Police Department and the Support Services Department. Just a quick reminder, March 18th, which is a week from tonight, 7 p.m. In the conference room, we'll be having a special closed session meeting. So make sure you get that on your calendars. I think we have it on our calendar in there, in your packet. You also got a flyer today for the League of California City meeting. That's going to take place on March 27th at McHenry Mansion. Please RSVP to Mike by Friday if you can. that we can get that taken care of? No, I guess maybe that wasn't on your calendar of events.
No, it's not.
I apologize for that. But anyways, we'll make sure that we get you a notice this week and just a reminder. So a week from today, next Tuesday, third Tuesday, in the conference room,
What time, Mike?
7 p.m.
There's a conflict on that date. There's a Rotary dinner for past presidents on that.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it possible to move that time up,
Well,
or?
we moved it to 7 due to the mayor had a medical appointment in Turlock. I can converse with him. One of the people that will be attending that meeting, our police chief candidate, doesn't get out into California until about 6:30, so it'd be difficult for him to get there any earlier than that.
Okay, I'll work with him.
Okay, thank you. We extended the CSO application process to Friday. If there's anybody out there who still wants to file an application for the CSO position, you have until this Friday. You can pick up the packets and the supplemental questionnaire at City Hall or on the website. All right, we continue to work with our budget and moving forward. You heard our league rep today saying there's lots of things, there's lots of jockeying for position that's going on at the state level with the COPS program and some other programs. There was 150,000 we might lose out on right there that directly has an impact on our, police department. So we need to continue to be vigilant on what's going on in Sacramento. And Mr. Qualls has done a good job of doing that for us. So we'll continue to keep you involved as well. And then last but not least, I'd like to tell the audience, stay tuned. After tonight's show, you will see the new episode of Day in the Life of Edgar. We have as you talked about, and we talked about in December, they had a ride-along. One of the video services had a ride-along with our code enforcement officer, did a little interview with him, did a little interview with the police chief. It's all been edited. It ran before this meeting, and it will be running after this meeting. So that's good to know. And then after this, we're now going to move into a canine video shoot. I think this one's about 7 minutes, and the next one will be about 7 to 10 minutes as well. So hopefully we'll have that done around the end of April to publish that. So with that, that's all that I had.
Michael, question, our community service officer?
Yes.
In the interim, who's actually performing that?
Edgar continues to perform. Edgar does not go away to the academy until July. Mid-July. Okay. The reason we're trying to get somebody on now is so that they'll have a specific 6 or 8 weeks with Edgar to start the training process. So okay. It may not be that long. We may only get 5 or 6 out of it, but that's our goal, is that the new community service officer will have time to spend with Edgar and show him the beat, if you will, prior to Edgar going off on to the academy.
Okay, thank you. Staff, don't get up all at once.
I just have some informational items for you. This is our restrooms, a little update as to what's happening here. Click through the pictures here. They've already completed the roof. That's the inside of the building. That's one of the rooms inside with the plumbing done. You have the plastic so that they can protect the split face block while they're doing some painting. And same way in there, there's another angle. And then in the next picture, you actually see the guy painting away. So it should be completed fairly soon. And I don't believe they've made the connections to the main water line and to the sewer line, but that shouldn't take much to do. And pretty soon it should be available for use. The other two available two informational items I had for you is we've gone out to bid for the relocation of that water main for the Plaza project. The bid opening date is April the 1st, and we'll be bringing it before you for approval on the first meeting in April, which I believe is the 8th. And the other informational item I had was that we got a call from Ecologic this morning. They're going to be coming out on Thursday at 9 o'clock to sink that monitoring well out at the wastewater treatment plant. And so this is something that we've been trying to get completed so we can move forward with our wastewater treatment project. Any questions?
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. Last Saturday was the close of our youth basketball season for the younger division. This coming Saturday is the close of the junior high division. That just means soccer's closer. Sunday is the final day of regular play for the adult basketball league. They will take Easter Sunday off and they will begin tournament play. That's always fun and exciting. They fight for a t-shirt. Last Friday, I met with staff from the city of Gustine High School tennis coach, and members of the Westside Tennis Club, and tennis pro Lance Turner. And Dr. Turner has a tennis program that he likes to bring to cities, and he brings it to the schools and to the cities. His object is to get it into the schools and the kids see it, and then he refers them out to the recreation departments. And they actually run these whole programs themselves. All we do is register the participants, and we get to keep 20% of the profit for just registering. So we are looking at having another meeting with the city manager and the city manager from Gustine and the rec department there, and again with Mr. Turner, or Dr. Turner, I'm sorry. Any questions?
Terry, did you say they're going to build new tennis courts here?
No,
Is that what I heard?
actually,
Yeah.
these gentlemen have their own portable nets. They have everything you can think of. All they need is a parking lot, a basketball court. They can do it in a gym. Everything's portable, everything. They bring their own rackets, and they actually do a tennis camp. And I think they said it was $30 or $35 per participant, and you get to keep the racket. They give you a racket. But they start out with these big, huge foam balls, like Nerf foam balls, so that nobody gets hurt. And they said it's a big hit everywhere, and the city of Los Banos has just started.
Terry, did they say an age group?
I believe they said about 7 years old. They can start them as early as kindergarten, but their prime target is 7 years old through 8th grade.
There are 7-year-olds that are ranked higher than I am already.
And they actually do, at the end, they bring in a tennis pro and they do lessons, so.
It's excellent. It's an excellent sport.
Jerry,
It really is.
Terry, right now we have, is it 3 tennis courts?
The school district has tennis courts.
We don't have any?
We don't.
No, we don't have any. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, but we do have basketball courts outside they can use.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're nasty. Nice guy.
Mayor Pro Tem and City Council, I just have a few items I'd like to report out on. Last month, Newman Police Department joined with all other law enforcement agencies in Stanislaus County joining Crime Stoppers. And recently, Detective Brett Short ran a photo in Crime Stoppers of an individual that we wanted on an outstanding burglary warrant. And within 2 days of his picture appearing in the newspaper, he turned himself in. So we've had remarkable success early on with Crime Stoppers. And actually, Newman and Turlock Police Departments were the last ones to join. We both joined last month. So every agency in Stanislaus County is represented on Crime Stoppers now. I'd like to report out that last week our evidence property clerk, Jim Bell, attended his annual conference. He came back with information on barcoding. This is the system that council approved at mid-year, and he brought back information from 3 or 4 vendors, so we're going to take a look at that information, discuss it with our IT consultant, and we're just one step closer to having our evidence barcoded. So again, I'd like to thank you for that. In the first week of April, Officer Joaquin Flores and CSO Edgar Lopez will be attending the Child Restraint Systems Training. And not only is this an enforcement tool for the police department, but more importantly, it's an educational tool for our community, as they'll be putting on seminars so parents know how to properly install those child restraint systems. I'd like to thank Officer Miguel Villalobos, who came to my office early last week and said that he wanted to take up this neighborhood watch program. He wanted to, this was self-initiated. He had been talking with these citizens. They had told him about their desire to start a neighborhood watch. He came in, told me he wanted to run with it, and I gave him my blessing and told him to go forth and multiply, and he's doing a wonderful job with it. So I'd like to acknowledge Miguel Villalobos for that. And just a canine update, this Thursday we're going to be meeting with the Rotary Club as they're looking to help support and sponsor our canine program. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
I guess that's it for the staff. Okay, items from the city council. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, nothing this evening.
I only have one. That's, I think mistletoe
No tennis courts.
killed my tree, Ernie. It's embarrassing. Everybody's trees are blossoming, and my stick is out there. And mistletoe did it. I know you. I'm busting your buns. So, thank you.
Mike?
Just a couple of comments. One, tonight we were faced with several issues talking about our water future of our water. Doesn't look like it's going to be cheap, but it's a challenge, and it's a challenge we'll have to take up as a city and address and conquer. The other thing is, to short tail on Michael's comments, a lot of excitement with the K-9 unit. Everybody I talk to about it, we should call this program the WOW program because everybody goes, wow, super. So just to relay that and the enthusiasm, the excitement about it. And Chief, thank you and thank your men for initiating the program and grabbing it and running with it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
The only thing I'd like to say, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and thank you for your excellent talk on our water system. Unfortunately, it's going to be very costly, but thank you so much. And could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion